Welcome, everyone, to Mythstorie, the podcast about myths and history. I am Brian Taylor Marshall, your host. Sitting to my left is my permanent co-guest, Peter. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
That's right, everyone. Guest episode. Hey, Cammie.
Hey.
My permanent co-guest. Co-guest? Did I just emote you?
That's what he is.
Okay.
He's a co-guest.
So you're just guest.
I see myself as a co-host.
So, Peter, what are we talking about today?
We're going to discuss the myth of Cupid and Psyche.
To quote you, there's going to be sex, murder. You just said this, right?
I did. I was kind of speaking about Greek myth as a whole, but
sure.
But yeah, there's lots of spicy tales.
This is going to be intense.
Yes.
Happy Valentine's Day,
lovers.
We know that you've put your this podcast on your Amazon Alexa or whatever, and you and your loved one laying down in bed ready to listen to Mythstorie. So
It's the most romantic thing you could do.
yeah.
So light a candle and open up a bottle of sparkling water and get ready to get crazy.
Right. So it is the time of love, and what a better love story, other than Oedipus, that we covered recently.
That was a very good love story.
Super great about families coming
staying together.
No mother issues.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today?
Well, we're going to discuss the classic myth of Cupid and Psyche, and Cammie is going to kick us off.
Oh, yeah. So, I don't know how much anyone knew before we got into this about Cupid and Psyche.
Almost nothing.
Okay, that's fair.
Baby butt.
It was, think of it like everyone knows now, basically, like in our American whatever, like culture, everyone knows about Beauty and the Beast. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of think about the story and just remember how it goes. And it's not really like in your forefront, but it's kind of maybe in the back of your mind, like this is a love story. Like this is how love stories go sometimes. Well, Cupid and Psyche, other than being almost exactly the same story, it was sort of like that in ancient times. So people had this myth that was always in the back of their heads about love, and this is sort of what it was, this fairy tale. So Psyche was the youngest daughter of a king, and she was very beautiful. Men would travel just far and wide to see her. The villagers would throw flowers in her path when she walked. I'm dead serious.
Pelt her with flowers. I just need to go to the bathroom. Please.
This is from. I'm getting my story from The Golden Ass, which is which was translated by Jack Lindsay, but Apuleius was who wrote it. But anyway, yeah. So flowers in her path. I hope she doesn't slip and fall down. The men would just forget their wives and Venus and just come and basically oogle this girl or ogle. And Venus was getting really jealous because the men no longer worshipped her. Her rights were being neglected. No one was sacrificing to her and that sort of thing. And Venus in general is notoriously jealous. I mean, she started an entire war over her beauty. So she summons her son, Cupid. And this is where the text gets a little weird. Cupid is described as a child or a winged lad. Puerum in Latin, which agrees with penatum ilium, which penatum is basically like winged, and puerum is boy. So he's described as a kid, like a winged, like a cherub.
And he's literally called like Latin, or in Latin, amor, too, I believe. Like as he's called in Eros in Greek. Mm-hmm. So he's literally like
He's
love, lust. Yeah,
sure.
Like banging.
And so the story, as we'll see later, because this is a love story between two adult people. Well, one's a god. He's not a boy. So it's just really weird, the differentiation that they make in this particular telling of the story, calling him a boy.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's like he's a young man. I mean, like I think in popular current mythology, Cupid is like a baby essentially, with a
that's almost what they're describing here,
right,
in the Latin. But but yeah, he's more like just a young man,
He's
like
he's
a 20-year-old.
super hot young man. Yeah,
I'll go
Yeah.
to it later too. But it was very popular in ancient Greek to have him be the young boy, the chubby version.
Right. So there's
in
two
the
Cupids.
Hellenistic era. Yeah.
There's this little boy, and then there's this like a naughty child, and then
But for
there's the
FBI
adult.
purposes, 21-year-old man.
Right.
trying-
Yes. And Psyche was also over 18.
Right. Yeah.
So back to it. Venus implores Cupid to pierce Psyche with one of his arrows and make her fall in love with him. Or not with him, with a man with no money and no beauty. So she just wanted him to find just the grossest old dude with no money and make her fall in love. It even says, one so vile that his wretchedness has no parallel anywhere. So she just really wanted her to fall hopelessly in love with someone gross. And Psyche, as beautiful as she was, none of these people that would put flowers in her path or anything were her suitors. Everyone was scared to be her suitor. So I can relate to that. Both of her Plain Jane sisters had met and married kings and whatnot, but she can't even find one person to join her on her sailboat and watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia on her iPhone. So, I mean, I totally get it. So her father consults the Oracle of Delphi, and the Oracle consults with Apollo, or who did we say it was?
It's Apollo. It's all in it for Apollo.
Okay. And then, so the Oracle comes down and she says she will marry a winged snake who strikes even the gods with dread.
Oh, you son of a bitch, Oracle. Come on.
I know. He flies high to work doom upon men. Blah, blah, blah. He's a fucking monster. So they march Psyche up to this precipice to where she's going to meet, or where the Oracle told her to meet the monster. And take her, I guess, for his bride. And then they just leave her there. But nature's kind to beautiful girls. So some birds came down to braid her hair or whatever, and she was flittered down to the valley by the winds.
The new iPad.
And then she fell asleep or something, and some time passes, and when it's finally light out, she spots a palace in the distance, like that of a god. So when she goes in, just imagine Beauty and the Beast. The house talks to her. Everything is done for her by invisible things. So she's waited on by invisible people. More accurately, maybe the house itself is waiting on her. Night falls and her invisible husband shows up, and they consummate their marriage.
Whoa.
And they live very happily for a time. Now, she hasn't seen her husband. She's never seen her husband. Mm-hmm. Her sisters show up looking for her body because she's fallen off this crag, or the monster's taken her, or what. And everybody left, so they don't know what's going on. And when they see how great her house is and how cush she has it, they get really jealous and inquire about what her husband looks like. And then, does the snake really own this place, and like that sort of thing. She confesses she hasn't seen him, but they're in love. The sisters go wild. They're just imagining all sorts of stories. They say he's just trying to get her pregnant so he can eat her and the child, and just I'm dead serious.
As
and
they
it's
do.
Weird.
Sounds like my sister-in-law's.
Oh no!
Love you guys.
But she starts to doubt her arrangement, as one would do if people are constantly in your ear about something. So when her husband finally shows up, she acts like everything is normal. And when he falls asleep beside her, she brings a lamp over to him. And she starts to notice things like there's some arrows in the corner. And, so it's a quiver of arrows.
A
And
lot of baby powder. Everywhere.
Yeah, just that sort of thing. There's, these wings on his body, this sort of thing. She's never seen him. And then she goes and she takes the lamp and she puts it to his face. And when she sees how beautiful this god is, she knows it's a god, child, man, whatever. she spills oil from the lamp on his shoulder. On his little shoulder.
Oh, no.
And he flies off to his mommy after he yells at her.
It's Venus, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. I mean, he basically acts like an insolent child. And we do find out while he's yelling what made him fall in love with her. So he was supposed to pierce her with the arrow. Instead of doing that, he accidentally pierces himself.
Dumbass.
And then, so instead of being in love with the terrible mortal, this god is in love with her. Mm-hmm. So back to the story. She was heartbroken. So she went straight to her sister, who said her husband was going to eat Psyche. And she said that, as a matter of fact, her husband was Cupid. But she burned him with the lamp when she was spying on him. And he was so angry, he said he would find her sister and marry her. She just had to go to the cliff where they left Psyche years before, and the winds would carry her to her new husband. The sister was so excited. She told her husband she was going to be with a god, and she didn't like him anyway because he had gout and smelled weird. And she went right up to the cliff and then stepped off onto the winds, which carried her all the way down to her death.
Yeah.
So, Peter, let's see if the story gets any better.
This is really interesting because Cami and I are using different sources. She's using the Golden Ass, which is kind of a primary source. It's centuries old. I'm using Edith Hamilton's Mythology, which is a classic.
Really good.
But it doesn't have as many juicy details as Cami's. I think this is originally published in 1942.
Yeah.
It's been around for quite a while. This is the volume that I grew up reading. So I'm going to pick up, excuse me, where Cami concluded. So our heroine Psyche has been shunned. Her hot husband has fled. Her mother-in-law is furious with her, and she's left to ruin. So what will she do? Well, she will go and plead her case in front of the goddess Venus. And the goddess Venus says, you will never get a husband without the proper training. So she assigns Psyche with a series of trials. First, Venus mixes a great quantity of seeds, wheat, poppy, and millet. Mixes them all together and dumps them out on the floor and tells Psyche she must sort them all by nightfall, and she leaves her. And Psyche, of course, is very, very distraught over this and pleads to the gods, but the gods do not want to anger Venus, so they refuse to help her.
Sorry, you're on your own.
Yeah. Have you seen her? And Lord. Who will come to her aid? Only the lowliest of creatures, the smallest of them all. Ants. A army of ants hears her plea and comes and sorts the seeds for her. So when Venus comes to check on her, she finds that Psyche has achieved her first trial, has passed her first trial. She's furious about this, and she decides right on the spot to devise another trial for the following day. So the next day, she orders Psyche to collect the fleece from these murderous sheep that live in murderous sheep.
Monty Python.
So these really violent, horrible sheep, but they have this amazing gold fleece. And she orders Psyche to retrieve some of this fleece. And of course, Psyche is just a helpless maiden. What is she going to do about this? So she goes down to the river where the sharp thickets where the goats live, and she thinks about throwing herself into the river. It's like just giving up. But suddenly she hears a small voice, and she looks around. She finds that this voice is coming from a little green reed by the river, and the reed counsels hers. Wait until the sheep go to bed at night and take their fleece from the thorns of the thickets and bring that back to Venus.
I thought he was going to say, wait until 800,000 ants devour
yes.
the brains of the sheep.
Army of red ants sting them to death. So she follows the instructions of the green reed and collects the golden fleece and returns it to Venus. Venus exclaims, "Someone helped you. You didn't do this on your own. But I've got another trial for you. You must go to the waterfalls, the source of the river Styx, the river of the dead, and fill this flask with its black waters." So Psyche the next day walks to this waterfall. It's extremely dangerous, slippery, high, rushing waters. Again, she's feeling like she's just been defeated by this trial. But once again, she has an unlikely helper. An eagle arrives and takes the flask in its beak and flies to the top of the waterfall, fills it with the black water of the river Styx, and returns. She carries the flask back to Venus, and you can imagine just how furious Venus is that this silly, beautiful, useless girl is coming back after these impossible trials. Someone's helping her. Who is it? But she gives her one last trial. You must carry this box into the underworld and demand that Persephone, the goddess of the underworld, give her beauty charm. Then you must bring it back in this box. How do you even find the entrance to the underworld? I mean, Psyche is a living being. How can she enter the underworld? But while she's wandering around trying to find the entrance, once again she's helped. This time by a voice from a tower, and the tower instructs her: "Go to this great hole in the earth. Follow it down to the river of death. There you will find Charon, the ferryman. Give him a penny, and he will take you across the river. The three-headed dog Cerberus guards the gates to the underworld, but if you give him a cake, he will let you pass."
Fucking right.
I wish they had known that in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Yeah, just give him some Little Debbie. Good to go.
Yeah.
She follows the instructions and she succeeds. Persephone gives her beauty charm, and Psyche puts it in the box and brings it back to Venus. But her curiosity gets the better of her. She has to know what is in this box. She might be seeing her husband later today, and wouldn't it be great to have a little extra beauty to win him back? So she sneaks a peek into the box, and she's stricken, destructed, and she falls into a wakeless sleep. Hearing this news, Cupid, who has recovered from his wounds,
From his sore shoulder.
He was such a baby.
I got burned by some oil. Guess what? I made some fried chicken tonight. I'm fine.
Literally immortal.
But he flies. His Venus has been kind of like nursing him back to health, but she's also kind of imprisoned him in her home. But he breaks out. He flies out the window to find his bride. He finds her, and he finds her in this deep sleep. And according to my story, he awakens her with a prick of his arrow.
Whoa.
Bada bang. And she awakens from her slumber. Now Cupid, being reunited with his bride, wishes to protect her from any further incursions from his jealous mother. So he makes an appeal to Zeus himself, asking that Psyche be made immortal. He brings Psyche to Olympus. Zeus agrees to let her drink the ambrosia, which makes her a goddess, and they are formally married there in Olympus. From that day forward, Venus could no longer mess with her, and Cupid and Psyche lived happily ever after.
Wow. So Psyche. So yeah, I legit I just got some little blurbs, but I didn't know the story because I really wanted to figure it out. That's really cool. That's really wild. Psyche becomes a goddess. I guess you can't beat him, join him, you know. Right. And then Venus people will go, oh shit, we can't see Psyche. She's up and getting boned by a little prick, so we gotta just go back to Venus. That's really cool. So. Yeah, I did a little background search of Kimmy. Sent me a text and was like, just look up Beauty and the Beast. I'm like, what the hell does that have to do with Cupid and Psyche? And yeah, so Beauty and the Beast was written in 1740 by Gabrielle Suzanne Barbeau de Villeneuve, and it was really popularized then. There hadn't been like a published version before that, it seems, and ever since then there's been tons of different versions. There was like a Jean-Marie Le Prince de Beaumont did like a children's version, it looks like, and there was an Italian version adaptation, lots of other versions that were kind of adapted from that. But Villeneuve's version was like the first that we know, and it's pretty similar to if you know the Disney one, pretty similar to that. There's some differences. Like I said, this one's pretty long. It's a novel.
Sure.
But this, from Wikipedia and Ancient EU, Villeneuve does use Cupid and Psyche as a reference. For
clearly,
sure.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see that, just as far as how Cupid and Psyche's been too. And we were talking a little bit before, like sort of the origin of the meaning Psyche too. I was wondering if the story would kind of employ that. It doesn't really, but but I think what we found is
our definitions of these things are not the same. I don't think.
Sure.
I mean, soul. You know, like our idea of soul is sort of like your
breathing
mind,
in life, right? Yeah,
inside of you. Like
some Greek philosopher thought your mind was on a different plane. I can't remember if it was Aristotle or not. Someone had like an idea of the perfect, and then that. But anyway, yeah. What I think I saw was
because Plato had the perfect.
Yeah,
your perfect partner would come to you.
That's right.
Soulmates.
Yeah, and that's it became very popularized during that Hellenistic period. The imagery, the way that the words transformed, and just I think like to breathe life was what I saw was like a Latin translation that could be seen. Cupid's pretty obvious though. It is cool though. I did see from Wikipedia the baby one that we kind of know that kind of came back in the 15th and 16th century, and there was some fun stuff too with like Christianization, kind of trying to, because Renaissance art had to be very Christian-y, but it was also going back to the classics, so you had to have that balance.
So make him less sexy by making him
right, and it was like a love of like
infanticide.
It was like, let's love. Like Cupid represents our love to God, because he's very angelic, and that's how we kind of see him now. Like that's when you think of an angel,
or there's an innocence
Cupid's very
to love
angelic
at the beginning, and
right, and because
the
Greek word for Cupid was eros, as an erotic, and so it was erotic is erotic. And like amor is a little, that's love, but you there's a little bit more like romance there.
Erotic is sexual love.
But yeah, it's totally like we're pricking tonight, okay? So
he had other brothers and each one, because I know Piccadilly Circus has the statue, and everybody thinks it's Cupid, but it's not. It's the friend. Like I said, I didn't take Greek. Do you know the name? Eros, maybe.
Well, there's an idea that there's Cupids. Yeah, there was three, even in Greek, as far as Greek, that there was multiple.
It's friendship, love, the love of like friendship, like between
agape?
the love between me and you,
agape,
us and Peter. Yeah,
agape is the Greek word for like friendly love.
Sure. I think his name was very close to It was, I think it was Eros or Eris with an E,
like a plural version, maybe,
or an I, maybe.
The Latin.
It was all different vowels. They just put a different vowel in there.
The Latin's Amorini for like the multiple cupids, which is just like loves.
Sure.
Yeah, like plural of loves.
Like different kinds of love.
No, I think like as far as Latin goes, like, and there is a distinction between like the Greek and Latinization of it. It's pretty intense. It like of how far Cupid goes and how he changed, but it's weird. Like Hercules and Heracles are super indistinguishable. Like it's literally just a name. But there's Vulcan, there's Mars, there's sometimes we think that the Romans took Greek gods, sometimes it was a melding. It's really weird, and Cupid's one of those where it transformed in that time too. And then it was, I think, the 4th century BCE was when we start seeing like Cupid and Psyche and things. So it was like very prominent in the culture, and I'm sure that those stories like that were being told everywhere. But during the Romanization, a lot of that meaning changed, and like I said, like he went from like chubby dude to like or chubby baby to slender slim dude, and I think it was actually slender slim for the Greeks, and then like chubby baby for we started seeing the chubbiness, the more pure version during Romanization, and then like I said during the 15th century when the sort of the Renaissance art stuff came, that's when he was like super babyfied, and super innocent, pure, and in some cases too there was like they try to like I don't want to say demonize, but they some people just were like, no, it's pagan. Stop. Like, he's pagan. Stop doing that. So I thought that was really fun.
Only Christian angels can have wings.
Right, yeah. And I talked briefly, too, like, specifically regarding Beauty and the Beast. I think that this story and a few others, there's this guy, a few guys, Dr. Jamie Tirani on BBC, they talk about how stories like Beauty and the Beast and Rapunzel is another one, are centuries old. Like these old, we might see them as like Germanic myths or European myths or folklore are much older, like Bronze Age old, based off of old scripts and texts and a pot and a vase that was decorated.
Sure.
They've been able to kind of firmly connect those. I feel like that's still kind of loose. Like you could say, well, clearly there's a baby on that with an arrow, so that must be Cupid. But anyway, what is talked about today, though, is how the specific myth of Cupid and Psyche is super folktale, fairy tale myth. Specifically, it really embodies those key elements. Like sometimes there's a difference between myth and fairy tale, in some ways.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, can you like Hercules?
It's like obviously a myth,
right? Yeah, but this is because it's got that story, it's got that lesson,
it's got a happy ending too.
Sure,
it's
yeah,
like, it's
true.
like
that is very rare in Roman and Greek.
Like a lot of them are instructive, like don't do this or terrible things are going to happen to you. This is more like hopeful and optimistic and loving. It's like, hey, you can end up with your true love. If it's going to be tough, but
and that reminds me, reading on Beauty and the Beast as well, I found some analysts saw Beauty and the Beast as really interesting because it was very untraditional. It was like the beauty Belle was a middle class. Mm-hmm. Like there, it's a fairy tale. Like do it up, or either be really poor or be really rich. But it was sort of,
she was a merchant.
Yeah, she's a merchant.
Right.
Yeah.
So they believe that the Beauty and the Beast was almost like not a preparatory story, if that's a word, like in preparation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But more like just like this is life. This is life. Your dad might marry you to a schmuck.
Right.
Sorry, and so and I find that, I mean, Psyche, there's a lot of fluff going on there. I don't think villagers are going to throw flowers at you on a daily basis unless they're like crazy. But
this was a novel that was
Psyche,
right?
They were trying to.
At least in my text, like Psyche is really sympathetic. I mean, she's not like into herself. Like she's got kind of like shitty sisters, and she's trying to just kind of do the right thing. I mean, like her dad's like, you're going to go marry a monster. She's like, oh, okay,
right,
and but she's still like, even after she's got this great life with all these riches, she still like invites her family to kind of share in that. So I think she's a really, really sympathetic character in a lot of ways.
Yeah. It is very like humanistic, and it's wild. I mean, it's understandable to see why it's lasted so long. It's such a core fairy tale of you marry it's like almost Frog Princey, but
it is it's all
the
of
same,
them.
yeah.
There's a shell that is lifted.
That breaks,
yeah.
Like it's this archetypal story, and the crazy thing is like Cupid and Psyche might be based on an earlier archetypal,
right?
That we don't know about.
I
think it's fast. This is what I love about this series.
The Rock
is like,
and the Rock.
These old stories. Like who knows how long this story was told before it became Cupid and Psyche? I mean, did someone just make that up out of whole cloth? Probably not. They probably base it on another story that we don't know about.
And when we going back to Hercules, because you just can't not. When we were looking into Hercules, so much of Hercules, like Hercules is everywhere. Hercules is in Egypt, England, Iran, obviously like in Europe and the Mediterranean.
Polynesia.
Right, yeah, exactly. And but specifically it's not even it's like so similar, and people know Hercules, like, and then they're just like, oh yeah, but we just call him, like we just call him something different.
Right.
But you say Hercules, I know what you're talking about. I hear that, and it's so eerily similar. And so yeah, this is one of those stories that is, and that's like Oedipus Rex, like when Sophocles going like, yeah, actually, let me write this down. I think this is one of those stories that Psyche and Cupid is just like, well, crap, let's get this. It's we were talking about Neil Gaiman's mythology, which we've talked about on one of the first episodes. What Neil Gaiman did when he wrote the Norse mythology book was he took the primary sources, he looked at them, and then as a great storyteller, he was like, I'm gonna make a good story out of it. So he had to cut corners or expand, and he had to do what he had to do to make it really good and engaging. But I mean, this is what people like, what Villeneuve, what Sophocles, what these guys have done, and it's turned out bonkers.
Yeah, here we are.
I mean, if even the awaking with the prick, it's almost like the kiss or the whatever. And so you see Cinderella, Snow White, all these.
Yeah,
that's a really good point.
Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, and like it was like both of those in a minute.
I'm sure there's more. I feel like there's more. And
I mean, the prick of the spinning wheel and the falling to sleep, and it's
You're poisoned by some outside godly force or ethereal damnation,
and
whatever
the trials, like goddamn.
Oh yeah, you always have a trial. Well, this
trials.
does follow, that part of
the
Campbell's
myth.
hero's journey. I mean, you have to have that middle part, that center, the bad before you can have the reward of the good.
Yeah.
So basically, the point is like, there's no originality, guys. It's all been done before. We're just
nope. Yeah, that's pretty much it. They see like isolation. Like Medium.com was like sending me an email. It's like, isolation is the key to original thought. I'm like, I mean, that just is the key to me thinking about stuff that's already been done. But yeah, okay, sure, you're right. Like, but but it's great. I mean, but people like Villeneuve were able to take it, and it's a matter of adapting to culture and to time. And like Villeneuve did. Obviously, we can make that connection, but it was brought to the time of 1740. Like I said, you're getting married. It's probably arranged. It's probably not going to be great. He's probably hairy. These are the things
he may have gout.
Right. These are the things you need to kind of go into, so it's like reality is entertaining, in some cases. Back then, reality was in the ancient, when you were like at ground zero of telling the story, you wanted to hear crazy stuff about a naked baby getting wax put on his shoulder. Because that was, you had to, can you imagine that?
One interesting thing about that is in the Golden Ass, they describe it as almost the oil was greedy. Like the oil wanted to touch the beauty that was Cupid.
Oh my god.
Isn't that weird? Like it almost became
wax.
a thing.
That's hot as hell, dude.
Yeah.
Is that why wax is like a sex thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is the other.
That's it.
Name
The Golden
for
Ass.
The Golden Ass.
Yeah.
Metamorphosis.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember. Anyway, yeah, that's funny. That's really
not
good.
to be confused with Aves.
Correct.
Metamorphosis.
Right. That's what now they call that, the Golden Ass.
Or coffee.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Please don't.
That's the next one. Yeah.
But I mean, this story and Beauty and the Beast and everything, it gives you that hope, that love, that there can be something pure in this world, that there can be something that you can strive towards.
That your really rich brat of a husband will come back to you.
Yeah.
and
Despite.
Well, you didn't know he was a brat because he was a demon in your mind before.
True.
He was
that's a great
the
point.
Beast. She saw that he was
And he
a
redeemed,
monster,
and she became
but
a goddess.
Cupid thought she was a monster. Yeah. So you have this hope.
Just like Belle received her goddessness when she was able to free him of the spell.
When they danced.
And yeah, exactly. And that's the antagonist is the fairies, which is the main antagonist of a lot of story, European stories from. I mean, you can
We
go
need
back.
to do fairies.
That's interesting, actually, because like the antagonist in Cupid and Psyche is basically Venus.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
this jealous goddess. But we get into the 18th century,
Right.
You know, there's no
Yeah,
like, you know, is it Satan? You know, it's no,
Right.
it's like it's a fairy. You know,
Right.
And where'd that come from? What's
Yeah.
that left over from?
I wonder.
That's a pagan thing.
I have a feeling like we've talked a lot about like going to the Samhain episode when Ireland Christianized. It still had a lot of the old magic in it. You know, like they had to adapt a lot of things, and some places were more. I don't want to use. I mean, superstitious, I guess, is what you could kind of say. And yeah, fairies I think are just a great. They're a great plot tool, you know, for your stories. And if fairies are a good way, I mean, they're just a great way of doing it. Fairies are different. Like there's the witch and there's fairies. You know, I think it's just not like nonsensical enough to kind of like.
It's the devil, you know.
I mean,
Sure, yeah, and I feel like Devil's a little too fire and brimstone,
Sure.
maybe a little bit too much before this point. I don't think Villeneuve was trying to go all like. It's not really a Christian tale, so.
I mean, aren't the villagers kind of the enemy too at that point? Because they were trying to kill the beast, and then the witch, was it a witch or was it a fairy that cursed the beast?
Yeah, in the
so like there's
in
just
the
kind of two
movie,
bad
yeah.
guys or whatever.
Sure, but they're under the impression of a crazy man in a really nice house. French Revolution.
I will say,
Beautiful.
this is just kind of an aside. We might come back to this if we do
Yeah.
Norse again. But I actually traveled to Iceland, a decade ago. It's incredible. It's an incredible place. But there's still a significant part of the population believes in fairies. Like before they plan a highway, like they actually will have like fairy people come out to make sure that it's okay with the fair folk before they.
That's cool.
It's a real thing.
Yeah,
like, it still persists to this day.
It's not like no, my mom's English. No one in the family is like that, I would say. But it's like it's still like really prevalent in the culture, like just in general. That stuff it's really prevalent in today. Just like the Jersey Devil people, it's very prevalent for them.
Like thousands of years later, like this little sprinkles of paganism
It's
just hanging on.
Sure.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what Christianity is. It's sprinkles of paganism.
Yeah.
It's really funny how it all like turns together, though.
But yeah,
does that about
I
wrap
think
it up,
we're.
guys?
I think that's
We're just shy
about.
of the 4:0, so
We can talk about it.
yeah. Well, guys, this was great.
We could go on and on, but
Yeah, absolutely.
we're getting a little off topic. But
Oh, hey, at least we didn't bring up Anthony Hopkins.
Don't do it.
or
Oh, this turned into an hour-long podcast.
Byzantium also did not make an appearance.
No, they'll return. We're doing a special series on that. No, well, Peter, thanks for joining us again.
Yes, thank you so much.
It's a
To make
pleasure.
it clear too, if you've lasted this long, we're gonna do a sort of like a special set of episodes. Like we're gonna encourage anyone who'd like to guest on the show to come and do that. Peter's been doing really great, and we wanted him to come back, and he's wanted to come back somehow, some reason.
I missed this love triangle. That's awesome.
Right. So we're gonna have a few like Peter-sodes. We'll figure it out, but we'll have a few episodes in tandem with our regularly scheduled programming throughout the next weeks and such, so you get a little extra dosage of myths and history with an IE. So thank you, everyone. Mythstorie@gmail.com. Let us know what you think, or hit us up on Facebook, or me, or Cami. And that's it. Thanks, everybody.
Oh. Go have sex.